Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsey. From the world of hip-hop comes one of the most popular rappers of all time, with a distinct voice, intense charisma, and passion for the game that sent him on a successful rise to the top of the music industry, establishing a foundation of fans who love and respect his work both during his life and after his death. We're talking about DMX. DMX was born Earl Simmons on December 18, 1970. Simmons, who was mostly raised by his mother as his father was largely absent during most of his childhood, struggled very early on with bronchial asthma. Earl was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, laying the groundwork for his faith that continued for the rest of his life. Simmons had a difficult life growing up thanks to physical abuse at home, which led to him rebelling and lashing out at school. He was eventually expelled from school and subsequently enrolled by his mother in a children's home, where he eventually tried to commit arson and was arrested. His criminal activities increased during his school years, but it was also during this time that he discovered music. He began beatboxing with a rapper who saw something in Simmons from the very start. Simmons eventually chose the stage name DMX, which referenced both the Oberheim DMX drum machine he was using, as well as the name Dark Man X. DMX generated some buzz in New York during the early 1990s thanks to his mixtapes he made featuring his rap, which he began selling on street corners. That local fame led to more and more spotlight, which eventually brought him to Def Jam Records. DMX's career at Def Jam skyrocketed as his first album, It's Dark and Hell is Hot, was hailed by critics and fans alike for its intensity and its storytelling, leading the record to go both gold and platinum. His next four records all enjoyed critical and commercial success as well, making him the only artist in music history to release 5 consecutive albums at the #1 spot. As his fame rose, DMX also began to branch out to Hollywood, where he appeared in several movies with stars like Jet Li and Steven Seagal. DMX was often praised for his acting, and many believed that he could have a serious career as a leading man on the silver screen. DMX's troubles with the law continued throughout his life, and so too did his relationship with God, which he heavily referenced on most of his work. Though he was battling demons, including drug addiction, for most of his life, DMX continued to try and keep moving forward through the years. He was planning a comeback and working on a new record when he suddenly died on April 9, 2021. The cause of his death is unknown, though some reports indicate it was a cocaine overdose that has yet to be confirmed. DMX leaves behind a lasting legacy that his fans and his peers will never forget. His impact on hip-hop, as well as his passion for his work and the complexity of his life, make him a very important chapter in the history of rap music, which will never forget him. And that's the lowdown on DMX. So I'm an old school rap guy. I remember when Yo MTV Raps became a thing. Dr. Dre, Ed Lover, Run DMC, Old School to NWA, Public Enemy. That's my stuff. I still listen to that. I still listen to Wu-Tang Clan. And I think for me personally, and I can't speak for anybody else, people listen to what they listen to for different reasons. And maybe it's the lyrics, maybe it's the vibe, maybe it's just what they're into. Could be all the above. I don't know. Again, everyone's different and everyone is into whatever they're into, and I totally get that. But for me, what attracts me the most to whether it's a group like an act or just one rapper, solo or whatever the case may be, or even Wu-Tang Clan where there's like 10 of them, is the cadence, the voice, the sound. Like that's a big thing to me. And being able to pick a guy's voice out of a plethora of other voices and just say, oh, I know that guy. I know who that is. That's Chuck D. Like no one sounds like Chuck D for sure. And anybody that tries to is probably going to fall short because Chuck D only sounds like Chuck D and he's got a great voice and I love it. And Q-Tip, same way. No one sounds like that guy. That's the stuff that kind of jumps out at me. I don't know why my ear goes for that automatically. It's like, I don't know, some voices, I don't know, click with me better than others. It's really weird. And I think a lot of that has to do with the guy's natural talent, his ability to get the lyrics over, his ability to get the song over. So having said all that, I think DMX is one of the best MCs I've ever heard. His voice, his cadence, his growl, that guttural sort of sound to his rhymes. I mean, man, this guy sounds like all man, beat your chest, alpha male kind of rap. That's every time I think of DMX, that's what I hear because that's his voice. And like, man, there's just something about this guy. We recently lost DMX kids, as you know, unfortunately. We did not record this before his passing. No real reason for it. It's just when you've got a pod like this, there's so much stuff we can talk about because it just combines so many different types of media into one podcast, right? So we just hadn't got around to DMX, but when he passed, it seemed like the right time to talk about him. Um, Phil, talk to me about DMX, man. Is he one of your favorites when it comes to rap?
I definitely think he should be on anybody's list of guys that from that era put rap on the on a global scale. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it, it's tough to just put into words everything that he brought to rap when he came out in 1998. And 98 is like the year of DMX. Like, I mean, the 90s all had its biggest stars, but 98 was DMX's year. He put out two solo albums that year, and I believe both of them debuted at number one.
Yes, yes, they did. Signed with Def Jam, got his first commercial success. Yeah, he. In fact, if you want to jump ahead a little bit, his first five albums all debuted at number one, which I don't know. I mean, has that been matched since then? Like, I don't even know the answer to that question.
I think he's definitely the only rapper to have his first three albums debut at number one.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if anybody has topped that yet, but I know at the time he was the only rapper that had done
that's crazy. I mean, it just goes to show that all this the rant that I just delivered here about his voice. I mean, he touched something. He hit a nerve for a lot of people. And not that white people can't listen to rap. I don't mean to suggest that, but he seemed to be one of those rappers that um, pretty much crossed a racial divide. Maybe if I could say that, it seemed like a lot of the guys that I was friends with when he was red hot loved DMX, and a lot of the friends I have who were white gets into his music and still likes it. And I don't know, man. I think there's something universal about his presentation, his voice, his sound. What do you think is it, Phil, about DMX that kind of speaks to people? Is it his sound? Is it his lyrics? Is it a combination of both, or what?
that. I listened to Pharrell talk, and he was on an episode of Drink Champs. That's Noriega's podcast.
Yeah.
Um, and he talked about how every rapper he worked with and how when they took off and they blew up is because they weren't just great rappers, they were great rap characters. And the reason why Nori and Super Thug did so well is because Nori was a rap character. And I believe DMX is the same thing. I think DMX is just one of those rap characters that you just couldn't deny him. Like it was his voice, his delivery, his vulnerability, his his religion, you know, it was just everything about him. He just was this fascinating guy. Whether you liked his music or not, like he just was a guy that was easy to get into, and I think that's part of what made him such a big pop culture icon and a great actor as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And as we said earlier, not only he's the only rapper, he's the only musical artist in history to release five consecutive albums that debuted at number one. He still holds the record for that.
Wow,
That's crazy. I don't know that I even knew that. I don't think I did.
I didn't know that. I would have guessed someone else. I
Yeah.
mean, if you had to ask me, definitely rappers, I would have guessed he was one of the only rappers to do it, but out of all music artists, I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah. Like I said, man, he hit a nerve for a lot of people. Obviously, I mean, you don't have that kind of success just because you're a good rapper. I mean, obviously he's touching a nerve with people. It's that sound, dude. Like again, man, I go back to guys like Chuck D, Q-Tip, Method Man. Like no one really sounds like Method Man, dude. How much of this do you think, even years after the fact, or we're talking about this and we remember this and we still pay respect to this guy, not because he's passed, but because he earned it? How much of this to this day do you think is all around that voice, his sound, man?
Yeah, I think it's a lot his sound. I think it was his I think having a guy that sounded like that, and like you said, he's like super masculine. He's super, brolic, and there's all the bravado behind him. But at the same time, he's so sincere and so vulnerable at the same time. To hear a guy come out and do like these like um, gritty rap records, and then also start his album with prayer, it's just such an interesting, juxtaposition, and I think that's part of what made him so interesting.
He's complex, man. He's not a one-dimensional guy at all. Um, yeah, this isn't some rap which is engineered toward a certain flavor or what have you. This is not Two Live Crew. No disrespect, Two Live Crew. Everybody, if they've got some sort of modicum of success, has its own audience. So they had their audience as well. But DMX is, I like how you put it, man. The vulnerabilities there, the prayer, the stuff, the religious part of this guy, which I know we're just getting started here, man. But like that, going back and listening to some of his albums, I'd kind of maybe not forgotten, but it just kind of blows out of my head at any given time about what how complex this guy was. That was a serious thing for him. Like it wasn't a gimmick. It wasn't like something to just put in his music to get empathy or something. I mean, he legit. And dude, if I say spiritual, it's gonna sound weird, but I mean, you think this he was a legit a spiritual guy? I mean, where do you think he's coming from with the religious aspect of his music?
I mean, religion was definitely a big part of his life. I mean, uh, I think he took it very seriously. I mean, yeah, his first two albums are religious references. Like it's the first one is it's dark and hell is hot. The other one is flesh of my flesh, blood of my blood. Then those are religious references. So I think his Christianity was a big part of his life, and I think it was a big part of his music because that's just who he was.
I mean, if you need proof of that, kids, Lord, give me a sign.
Yeah,
Is a great freaking song. Like, even if you didn't listen to the lyrics, and even if it's not your thing, I get it. But man, what a good song! Like the conviction—that's a good word for this guy. The conviction in his voice when he raps, man. Uh, dude, as pro wrestling fans, we often talk about characters, and if they believe it, we're more inclined to believe it. If they are feeling it, we'll feel it. Man, maybe that's also part of this package deal with DMX is that he felt it and it was real for him and it meant something to him. And because he was so passionate during his performances and on the albums and whatnot, I mean, that's got to account for a lot of his following, man. Because you want to think that the guy that you're either paying money to see or you bought his album or his download or whatever, that he's actually tuned in. And I don't know, man. It feels like to me that when you have an artist like that, that people just tend to rally around that guy a little bit more than they would someone else who's maybe just a pop singer. Like this guy had a lot of heart in his lyrics, man. I think a lot of that too is what we're talking about. If you're comparing him, and I know compare and contrast is odd sometimes or difficult depending on who we're talking about. Talk to me, man, about the other rappers of his era. Who do you think was sort of coming out from like the same perspective as DMX? Was he just coming from his own unique perspective, or do you think there were other guys at the time or women perhaps that were sort of sharing his outlook, or what do you think? Is that what makes him so special because he's so unique?
I think he was extremely unique for his era. Um, I don't think there was anybody else in his era like him. I think he was very close to Tupac in a sense that he he had this genuineness to him that you wanted to like you just wanted to see what was there. And I almost feel like he was even more genuine than Pac because um I don't know how much you know about Tupac, but Tupac had great lyrics and he had great stories, but he wasn't a street guy. Like he kind of became that when he got older. Like X was a street guy. Like he was a
Mhm.
street guy from a very young age.
You know, it's funny you mentioned Pac because I was thinking about that earlier actually. Man, I don't want to hit you with this too early. It feels like this is something I ask you at the end of the show, but and maybe we'll get there in grand fashion as we wrap it up. But I don't know, man. In my head, I'm just wondering, uh, did people take DMX as seriously as they took Tupac? Because man, Pac was for a lot of people, he still is like this visionary, like this guy that was a true poet and had uh, depth and insight and a lot of meaning behind his lyrics. I mean, I don't know if I hear that said a lot about DMX. Maybe the way it should be. Do you think maybe it's the timing of it? It's like if there had been no Tupac and we had just had DMX, I mean, do you think he would have maybe taken that role in the minds of a lot of fans? You think?
I mean, I just think it's two different eras.
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, sort of two different eras because Pac was still active like early '90s. Um, but I think I think people did take DMX very seriously. I think just because it was hard not to because he was so passionate and he was just his lyrics were so honest. Like it would have been hard to see him as just some other guy or to see him as some guy that was putting on just for his records.
Right, right. And look, I mean, not for nothing, kids. We don't try to hold up anybody as being perfect here, and I mean, no one's suggesting that he was. DMX did call himself a Christian, said he read the Bible every day. The truth of the matter is, he had a total of 15 kids, nine different
Wow.
women. Yeah, nine different women. There was extramarital affairs. No one's claiming he's a saint, folks. So please don't. This is not idol worship. This is just us talking about a guy that happens to be, in my opinion, one of the greatest rappers of all time. And I don't think he's got a career that anybody's going to be able to mimic anytime soon. The success he achieved and everything. Um, but he's human. He made mistakes. He wasn't perfect. I think a lot of that, especially in the lyric in "Lord, Give Me a Sign," is something about the walk has been hard. It's like he's calling out to God, but letting him know, man, I've screwed up. I don't want to go back to doing things. I need your help. And man, he did that a lot. Like there's just this idea of I'm in a hole. I got to get myself out of the hole. I don't know what to do. How much of that do you think was him as a man, or how much of it was him as a rapper? And just the whole idea of, well, if you're a rapper, you got to be a tough guy. You got to be able to defend yourself. If someone steps to you in a bar, you got to be able to throw a punch. You got to, dude. I go back to wrestling again, Phil. It's kind of like old school wrestling. Like back in the day, if someone stepped up to you in a bar, you better be able to throw a punch because they're already going, oh, look, it's a phony wrestler. How much of that you think it's maybe still to this day in the whole rap game that people are like, oh, well, this guy, he better be a tough guy. We're going to test him. How much of that do you think actually still happens?
I think it was both. I think it was that this was his uh this was his journey as a man, and then you know that transitioned into his music because that's just who he was. I mean, this is a guy that struggled with legal issues. Most of his career, he struggled with addiction most of his life. Um, so I think when he makes a song like "Slippin'," or like you said, Lord give me a sign." Those are all him wanting to be in a good place because he's in a good place as an artist. He's in a place where he's making a lot of money. He's famous, but he still has you know, these consistent issues with whether it be legal issues or with drugs that he struggled with his entire life.
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, a lot of that led to the end. And I don't know if you dove, did a deep dive on what happened. I haven't. I just, I'm not one of those people that reads the headlines when someone passes like a celebrity. If it's a wrestling thing that I'm writing about or something, I might read a little something about it. But I haven't gone too deep on that. But I feel safe to say that it's probably a lot of the things he struggled with in his life is maybe what led to the end. Unfortunately, shows that he was battling demons. And again, kids, not perfect by any stretch. None of us are. It's unfortunate that he wasn't able to overcome. It's a shame. Um, let's talk about the acting, man. Uh, I told you this before we started recording here today. I think he's actually underrated as an actor, and I don't know how many people would agree with that. You read the reviews of the films he was in, and he usually got props, but the film as a whole wasn't good, like 5 out of 10 stars or 3.5 or whatever it is. I mean, uh, just imagine this guy with a great director and a stand up cast and a great role he could sink his teeth into. I mean, people talk about go back to Tupac, man, about well, this guy had acting chops, man. I think DMX in the right situation could have been a leading man. I think anyway.
Yeah. I think he's one of the best rappers turned actor ever. Um, when I think of like early '90s, again, '98 was the year of DMX because
Yeah.
Belly came out in '98 as well, and that was just one of those movies of that era that you know all of us as rap fans, like we hold Belly to a high regard. And it isn't a fantastic movie. I'm sure if you go back and watch it now, it doesn't hold up that great. It has all of the fantastic visuals of Hype Williams music video because he directed it.
Right.
But man, those first few minutes of them going in and doing a robbery, him and Nas and their crew, it just looks awesome. With come on, man, it's one of those great cinematic moments that I always think about. And I mean, even just going from that and doing Romeo Must Die, and uh, the other movies he did was Jet Li, Cradle to the Grave.
Yeah.
He did the movie with Seagal, Exit Wounds, um,
Yes.
and then Never Die Alone, which is one of my personal favorites because he's essentially a leading man in this movie, and I think he could have done more as an actor, but that some of that might have been his struggles and not being able to you know stay on a consistent schedule and be where he needed to be sometimes because I've heard some of the stories of him on set.
Wow. Um, a total of 20 movies. I had no idea. And the final two, one is in post production, and one, the only thing it says is filming.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, dude, I had no idea he had been in that many flicks, dude.
I didn't know he still had movies in the works.
I didn't know either.
He
Now,
still has an
granted,
album in the works though, so I mean, maybe he was planning this massive comeback.
what do you know about the album? Because I haven't heard much about it.
Um, it sounds like the album is finished. They plan on still putting it out.
Nice.
Um, he had made his way back to Def Jam. I think he left Def Jam in like 2004, 2003, something like that.
Hmm.
And he, he had some issues with them. They didn't want to put out one of his final albums because of the quality of it. They shelved it, and so he left and he started doing more indie work. Yeah, and so this is his first album back with Def Jam. Like I said since 2004. That's almost 15 years, longer than 15
Wow.
years. Sorry, um, and from what I heard, he had a lot of cameos on it. He had Usher lined up, Pop Smoke, West Side Gun. Um, I he talked about it on the episode of Drink Champs he was on, and he was saying how he had this is the most features he's ever had, and how he was surprised when he put the word out how many people want to work with him. But that just speaks to how respected he was in the industry.
Oh, dude, no doubt about it. I mean, you'd have to think that a lot of the guys who are in the game today were probably inspired. I mean, you got to count DMX as an inspiration, man. Like, I don't know how you can't. I mean, just at least to acknowledge what the guy did and how important he was to the genre. Man, you know, and I'm going to hit you with sort of what I call the mainstream DMX hits. You got Party Up, X going to give it to you. I mean, that's, that's great stuff, man. It's just these songs I could put on a loop and just play over and over and over and over and over again. But do you think maybe that was part of the reason why he got over the way he did was because a lot of his stuff. I mean, like X going to give it to you is you could put that in anything, movie, TV, whatever, and it's going to work because it's got that hook, man. He just had the ability to just deliver that hook and those lyrics and that sound. And man, I keep going back to the word crossover and mainstream. It seems like I don't know, dude. You know what I'm saying there, right? Because he's making stuff that just everybody can sort of, I don't know, for lack of a better term, just bob their head to it. You know what I mean? Like it's the beat of it. I mean, I think he had an innate ability to know. I mean, he's a businessman, right? I mean, he knew what sells. He knew what he could do, and what he was the best at. And I think when he really put his mind to it, he knew, oh man, this is going to be a hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think it helped that he got matched up with a guy like Swiss Beats early on,
Yeah.
and that helped him. But I mean, he has some crossover records that are just undeniable. Like he said, "Party Up" is just one of those records that I don't care where you play it; it's universal. Um, and same thing, Rough Riders Anthem.
Yeah.
You could play that anywhere, and it's just universal. And you wouldn't think that listening to Rough Riders Anthem, but everybody knows that hook. So it's just one of those
Right.
things where I don't care where you play it, people know that hook.
It's funny because like it might be, ironically enough, one of my least favorite songs of his. Not because I don't like it. It's just I guess the start and stop all the way through the tune. But then when I hear it, I never skip past it. I just let it play. So like not my favorite, but I still listen because it's him and it's good and it's yeah. And plus once it gets in your head,
Yeah,
man, it's in there.
I
Um,
mean that just was man. That was part of the era of all of those guys that were bikers and yeah, I mean, I've been places where I've seen all of the Rough Riders come flying by on their motorcycles with like all the flags and the bandanas and stuff, and it's a sight to see. And like when it's not like I'm sitting here like, oh man, X was probably with them. This is probably just random Rough Riders just riding around, but
right.
it's just man, that was just the era, man. Of all of those songs, and what that meant for a lot of people.
I mean, I think he best signified that time too. It seems like you could put that guy out in front of his era, and maybe that's the best commentary to have for any artist is that they're at the forefront of a movement of an era of everybody that comes after him is sort of just riding on the coattails, which that's I swear that's what it seems like. I mean, especially going back and looking at the films, and it just seems like he had maybe tapped into something that we didn't know was there. But like I said, man, I think people that came after him, uh, really, a lot of them maybe couldn't even hold a candle to this guy because he was that good. Um, what's some of your favorite tunes by him? I mean, the two that we mentioned, obviously. Lord, give me a sign. Is that one of yours also, or what's some of your
Yeah,
favorite
I
DMX
think
tunes?
that's up there. I mean, of course, like "What's My Name" is top of the list. "What's My Name" is just like the quintessential DMX record, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Like it's impossible to not hear "What's My Name" and not get hyped.
right. Bloodline Anthem. I sent you that before we recorded. I had forgotten how great that freaking song is.
Yeah, of course, like "Who We Be,"
Yeah.
like I think
No Sunshine. I mean, it's a remake, but still.
yeah, um, uh, "Where the Hood At."
Yeah.
Throw that one out there too. But yeah, he's got so many big singles like that. That, like I said, don't seem like they should be, crossover records, but a lot of them are, and I think it's just because he just created this sound all his own at the time.
Yeah, I mean, again, man, no one sounded like DMX. I don't think anybody ever will. I mean, if they did, it'd be like a cheap carbon copy, maybe, I guess you could say. But again, man, I go back to his sound, and that's one of the things that turned me on to this guy pretty early. Um, Entrepreneur seems like. I mean, you combine the music with the acting, and he seemed like a smart guy that knew uh, that to have longevity, that you have to put yourself out there. Did he ever tackle TV? Because I don't recall really seeing him do anything like a TV project, unless I'm forgetting something.
Not that I know of. I know he's done like the reality TV stuff, like
Mm,
everybody's done, but
that's right.
I don't know if he's done any TV roles outside of that.
Yeah, I forgot about the reality show, man. I can't swear to you that I've seen a lot of those episodes. Did you follow that when it was on the air?
I saw some of it, but yeah, it wasn't anything that I would be like, yeah, make sure you go out of your way to watch.
Oh wow.
But
DMX,
I mean,
Soul of a Man.
yes, that's yep. Um, yeah, but I mean, the thing that Soul of a Man did show you is that he was just such a character. I mean, him showing up and just all these random places, because I believe for the show he lived in Arizona,
Oh
which
wow.
is just like what you wouldn't think DMX is living in Arizona. Like, like it just doesn't seem like when you think DMX, like he's living out in the desert.
Right.
Um, but he lived in Arizona, and just some of these like places he would show up, like what are you doing here? I mean, like even when you look at like, I think he made a cameo in like a rock band video, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
I think so, yeah.
And it's just some of the places that he would show up. It was just like, um, this guy is not just this rap persona that we know him of. He's not just this um gruff guy that we know. I mean, even past just the vulnerability of him, just saying that he was just a guy that liked to have a good time. And I mean, a lot of videos that came out when he passed of people seeing him and just how fun he was to be around. Um,
Yeah. Singing
or like
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer at the radio station.
yes, him in the passenger seat with his goddaughter singing a Taylor Swift song, or
Yeah.
him being backstage and jamming out and listening to somebody else perform and being so into their performance and singing along on the side of the stage. And it's like an R&B singer. It's just stuff that you wouldn't think that he was into. Or I know he did the verses recently, and there was like a video of him singing Michael Jackson's song afterwards while he was eating. It's
Ah,
just
it's funny.
like all of that stuff is just he was just such an interesting guy, man. It wasn't like anytime you thought he had him in a box, like oh he's the he's this super gangster guy, or no he's this super religious guy, and then he go nope he's actually kind of funny as well. He's kind of this, he's kind of that as well. He just was a multi-dimensional guy.
Um, did I send you the clip of him at the Albanian wedding?
You didn't, but I've seen it.
Man,
And
I
that's
never knew
again,
that
that's
even
to my
existed.
point. It's just like, what are you doing here? It's like all these places he would show up. It's like,
Yeah.
what are you doing here?
And I don't know, because the way they embraced him, legit embraced him in that video, dude. I think this goes beyond. Maybe I'm off base, but it feels to me like this goes beyond the black and white thing. To me, this feels like people are pleasantly surprised and pretty happy with the fact that, man, this is a real guy. Like, this is, how much money this guy's made in his career, and man, he's hanging out with us. He seems like a nice guy. I mean, dude, to me, I think that crosses a lot of lines right there. Just the fact that, any number of celebrities, especially rappers sometimes, and even any kind of musician, could be so far above their station. They've got an entourage. They've got 20 guys around them. They've got girls around them. They've got limousines. They've got Humvees, all this other stuff. But then you see him at just random spots, and you're like, this is just he's just a regular guy, man. I got to think that's a lot of the allure of DMX as an entertainer is the fact that he just seemed like a almost like a blue collar working class rapper, man. It's sort of like the
Yeah.
John Lennon of the rap game, maybe.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the fact that he was so down to earth as a person, and because he had been to very lows in his life, he just I think that he could just be in any situation and relate. He didn't he was a celebrity, but it didn't feel like he was above anybody. And I think that's a part of why his music resonated as well, because again, there was such honesty to his music. It was never like I'm just trying to let you know how hard and how gangsta I am just for the sake of. All of it had a message behind it.
Yeah, there was a message behind it. Yeah, there was a reason that he was rapping what he was rapping. Like it just felt like he sat down with, and maybe this is way off base. But it just felt like he sat down with a pen and paper, and whatever was in his head, he just put it down. Like whatever was he was going through that day or stuff that he was dealing with, instead of hiding it behind the mask of, like we said before, the big tough macho rap guy. Instead of hiding that, he just put it out there for the world to see. I mean, that takes stones, if nothing else, man. The fact that he was willing to put himself out there. Uh, we talked about Tupac a few times here. This is where you'll have to let me know because maybe I'm blanking on this. A lot of the stuff that we heard, especially in the '90s and the early 2000s and the '80s, I guess it really started mid '80s as just a playful banter. This MC's better than this guy, and it was sort of, oh, I'll just try to one up him. By the '90s comes around, we've got guns and we've got this stuff's getting hardcore. This is okay. They're dissing each other and all this kind of stuff. I mean, he had his a couple of different feuds here that we can talk about, but go talk to me about the East Side versus West Side stuff. I don't seem to recall DMX coming out and saying, "Oh, East Side, that's it. Those guys suck. We're East Side's whatever." I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that, but I don't seem to recall him coming out and taking part in that war, so to speak, man.
Oh, well, I mean, he's part of the era that is kind of right after that because it was like
Mm,
NWA hit and NWA hit hard. It was like NWA is a big part of what changed rap to gangster rap.
right.
And, all of the guys that came out of that kind of put the West Coast on the map. Whether that's Pac or, Snoop, Dre, all of the big acts that came out of the era put West Coast on the map. And then, the East Coast uh, became more and more, gangster on the same level. But I think after everything happened with Pac and Biggie, and both of those guys ended up passing. And so by the time X debuted in '98, that was pretty much over with. Because I mean, when you look at the other big East Coast guys that came towards the end of that era, they were coming at the tail end of that feud. Like Nas and Jay Z, they were coming at the tail end of that because Jay Z debuted in '96.
Right.
And he was like right in the midst of it because he was good friends with Biggie. But like I said, he passed right before um, X really took off.
And it's funny because we're talking about sort of the transition. Do you think maybe DMX could be considered a trans? I guess my question is, if he's the transition from the hardcore gangster rap, what do you think he's a transition to? Because you look at today's rap game, and there's some solid guys out there, right? But it's not it's not what DMX had in his heyday. So, what do you think he was a transition to?
I mean, I definitely think he helped to transition to guys like Kendrick Lamar,
Mm,
guys that are, that can make this gritty gangster music that also has this soulfulness and this heart to it. Um, there are a few guys that I think he definitely helped to. I don't think we would have guys like Kendrick, and I mean, you could say that Pac was a big influence on Kendrick as well. But yeah, I would say some of the more esoteric gangster rappers that are out there now are there because of X.
it's so funny how things change, man. Because As I've told you a few times before, my kid is real big in hip hop these days, and a lot of stuff he'll let me hear. I'll be like, just let me hear it. And the mumble rap thing is still a thing. I don't know how much longer it'll be a thing. It seems like it's kind of transitioning out. Maybe I don't know if it's as hot as it once was, but um, I love the genre. It's just again, it's whatever your ear is goes to. I just don't tend to go to that style of rap, but guys like DMX just straight up rap and that kind of thing, especially if it's got a rock and roll thing behind it, because it's kind of my thing too. So um, yeah, it's interesting to me to think about sort of where we've come, where we were when he was here, and then where we've kind of led to after that. Let's get to the feuds, man, because and we're kind of bouncing here, but uh, how serious do you think the little mini feuds were with Ja Rule and Jay Z? Was this just all in good humor back and forth? Was there some serious contempt here? I mean, how much do you know about that? How much do you think of that was legit?
Um, he came from a competitive era, man. I think the other thing, like the late '90s, I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. That was the era where you had to be able to freestyle.
Mm,
You could not be in a culture and be a rapper and go to radio stations and not be able to rap if they just put on a beat. You had to be able to freestyle and you had to be able to battle. And X was a guy in that scene in New York where almost everybody knew each other and they were in the same circles and they all battled. And so, if I remember correctly, the Jay Z stuff stemmed from they used to battle. Um, and I don't think it was just, I don't think it came from a place of malice. I think it came from a place of competitiveness.
yeah, and we're talking kids about Jay Z, DMX, and Ja Rule, and they were Murder Inc. And I'm guessing the plan was to actually do an album, but they couldn't even get there because of the feuding that started going on between DMX and well, both guys.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I forgot. So Murder Inc. was supposed to be. It ended up being a a, a company, and that ended up being where Ja Rule and Irv Gotti were putting out the music.
right.
But it was supposed to be a group at one point with Ja and Jay Z. And I think the thing was Ja because um, Ja Rule actually opened up for X at a show, so they all knew each other.
Hmm.
But I think some of the contention with X is that um, he felt like Ja Rule was kind of trying to take his voice and take his sound, and Ja made it seem like it was just a coincidence, but I don't. I mean, I think if anybody that knows Ja Rule's music early on, and you put him in the same, you play him next to X, it sounds similar enough that I don't think he was just he was just being mad to be mad or being paranoid.
Yeah, there had been talk like that at that time and shortly after about, is he intentionally doing this? Is he changing his voice? And I don't know, I was talking about cheap carbon copy. No disrespect to Ja Rule, but dude, we've seen this in the record business for years in the recording industry. I mean, guys take inspiration from each other. I mean, there's guitar riffs that were written in the 1920s that are still being played today, like note for note. And it's just one guy borrows from the next, and one guy borrows from that guy, and I don't know, that to me seemed a little bit more blatant. Tom Clark 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark 6M Podcast sent you. I don't know, man. Do you think he was legit changing his voice for real? I mean, was that? Think it was? Was he doing it subconsciously? Was he doing it, or was it like a sort of a premeditated thing? Man, I don't know.
Well, he naturally has a deep voice, and
Right.
his I think any of the connections with DMX are also how he also started putting a religion into his music, and he also started doing stuff with the dogs, and those are clearly X's things. Like when you think rappers, dog and dogs, you think X,
Yes.
and I mean he was one of the first guys at that time that was putting a religion in his music so hard, and he put a lot of religious iconography in his music. And I mean, there were other guys that did it before him, but I mean, he had a very distinct way of doing it. And so I don't think it was necessarily just his voice. I think it was just certain things that he was also starting to do at the time that made people also make that comparison.
Yeah, the whole dog thing is great because what was the fascination with the dogs, man? Because you hear them on his stuff, and it's like, uh, is this the part where it's like, Tom, hey, you're an idiot. Are you not seeing this? Maybe I missed it somewhere. I loved it, but maybe I missed it.
He was just a big dog guy. I mean, he I think the best story I heard was um I'm trying to remember. I think it was Murder Mook. Murder Mook was there. He saw DMX do a battle once, and he was saying how he always had dogs with him, and no matter where he went, he always had dogs. So he's standing out
Like
there.
physically had a dog with him.
Yes, so he's
That's
standing
great.
out there freestyling with the dog, and like he's going into the line. I don't remember what the line was, and he finished the line, and then the dog started barking at the guy he's rapping at, and he turned around. He said, "Chill, let me get him." It's still in
Ah.
rhythm, and he kept rapping afterwards. And so Murder Mook at the time thought he was like, did he teach his dog to do ad libs for him?
That is the best story ever because you could totally hear him doing that, being all laid back. I got this. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, I think from his the story he told is that he just always felt a connection to dogs, and he just felt like he liked dogs more than people, because he was saying, people will lie and people will betray you, but a dog, once you have their loyalty, they're not going to betray you. And I think he said he first found that out. He used to steal dogs. He said that he used to steal dogs, right? So he brought this
Wow.
dog home, and his family was like, "Get that dog out of here! Like, you can't keep this dog." And so he took it to the roof of the building he was in, and he took a hot dog. He gave one to the dog, and he ate the other one, and they fell asleep on the roof. And the maintenance man came up there to open whatever the door behind him, and he had to wake him up because he was like, you gotta move." And he was like, "Why did you just wake me up before that?" He was like, "Cause your dog won't let me by." And he had just met this dog, but he
Wow.
was like, that was the first time he was like, that's why I love dogs, because dogs, long as you're straight with them, they'll be loyal with
Right, right. It's so funny, man. I went through a phase of calling people dog. Uh, I don't do it so much now, but I don't even know what prompted it. It became a habit, and then I did it all the time, like all the time. Looking back on it now, the Tom of 2021 may not have done that now because, like, you know, I don't want, you see what I'm saying? I don't want it to be, oh, well, Tom thinks he's cool or something. And I was never cool, but
you.
I'm just, but it just became a habit and I did it constantly. Like, constant. I don't even know if I had any friends that were doing it, to be honest. I don't think I did, but I did it. I don't know, dude, hindsight 2020, I could have picked it up from X. I don't know. Maybe I did. Uh, it definitely made him stand out for sure. Uh, I don't know, man. We were talking about his tunes earlier, man. I just some stuff like again, like if I'm gonna turn up in my car as loud as I can, I might have the windows up because dude, I don't know. I don't want to be the white guy with the rap song with the N word being blasted full throttle. Like I'll enjoy it for what it is, and I like the song. But there's something about a white guy pulling up to a red light with his windows down and the song's blaring. Listen, tell me if I'm wrong, but to me, that's kind of, I don't know. Is that bad taste, you think, man?
I don't think it's bad taste if you pull it up and you're just blaring this and you're like yelling N word out of your car
Oh,
while
I
it's
see.
going.
Okay.
It might be a little bit worse,
Right.
but no, I think if you're just listening to music, I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, because I want to enjoy the stuff, but then like I don't want it to be, look at that guy, what's he listening to? And then because oh crap, well I didn't mean it like that, you know. But yeah, kids, listen. If when it gets to that part, you just wrap around the word and just keep trucking. You don't have to repeat what you hear. Good Lord, God gave you a brain, use it for goodness sake. Um, but yeah, man, there's something about his discography, man. That's just I don't know. Like again, some rap today, I'll give it a chance, and it's not my style. It's not really my speed, but I could listen to DMX anytime, man. That's the truth. He's probably got to be he's in my top three, probably favorite of all time, if not my number one. Honestly, I mean, I just think he's that good. Um, go back to the Murder Inc. stuff just for a second, man. It's a shame that it didn't work out because I'm just sitting here thinking, what if these guys had done a couple, two, three albums as a trio and been like, man, I just talk about stuff that's sort of unfulfilled and unrealized. I think that would have been a fun run, dude. They could have made a ton of money. We could do this. Could be a whole different conversation. We could be talking about Murder Inc. as being one of the hottest rap acts of all time. That would have been insane to even think about.
Yeah, it just feels like one of those things. Like we've heard stuff like uh, Michael Jackson and Prince were supposed to be on a song together, right?
Mm,
And it almost feels like this was going to be a hit without me. That's what Prince said 'cause he was supposed to be on Bad, and he was like, Bad, was going to be bad with or without me.
right.
And I feel like X was going to be X with or without the two of them. And it's the same thing with Jay. Jay is going to be Jay because he was just on that trajectory at the time, and they've done songs together. I think his verse on Blackout off of I think that's off Hard Knock Life.
Yeah.
I think
I'd forgotten all about that.
that's one of the best um, features in DMX's entire career, in my opinion. It's probably the best verse on the song.
Man, and this is a matter of Tom hasn't YouTube this yet because I just don't recall if this ever happened. But Bloodline Anthem, just I don't know. I could just picture. I was thinking about this today when I was listening to this song again for the first time in a long time. Ice T did the hardcore rap thing with the metal behind it, and what did he call that band? Body Count, right?
hmm
And I like Ice T. I can't. I don't know if it fit. Um, I mean, it fit because it's him and because he's talented, and it sounded like it fit. But man, if I imagine DX with a heavy metal band playing behind him, and that's the act, dude, I think that's a whole album right there. I don't know if it was anything he ever wanted to do, like to ever tackle. I would think maybe it would have been a thing where he'd be like, oh, let me just try this because he seemed to be that guy that was willing to do different things, take his voice in different places. Because you listen to his albums, man, and there'll be a guitar behind this one, then this one's piano behind it. So it's like he was willing to experiment, man. I'm just sitting here imagining like a heavy metal band playing behind him and how cool that would have sounded and how awesome of a stage show that would have been to imagine him out front, either with a wife beater on or shirtless and just with that voice and he would hold his own with like Slash or somebody. I think more than hold his own with that voice, man. I just think that would have been great stuff.
Yeah, I think he would have sound great um, as like a front man for some kind of like metal project. Um, I mean, you saw some of that towards the end of the era in the 2000s. More rappers were willing to do that. Um, I'm not sure if that's just something he just never thought about or was never brought to him. But I think he would have. I think he would have been great.
Where do you think? Because I was thinking about this earlier as well. Where do you think he was in his own head in terms of his legacy? I mean, how often do you think that was something that really? I mean, did he speak of his legacy that often? I mean, did it cross his mind? Was he very aware of his place in the grand scheme of things in the game? I mean, do you think he even sweated stuff like that? Did he really care about it, or was he very conscious of who he was and what he did for the rap genre? You think?
Uh, that's tough to tell. I think he had a legacy, and I think he knew that he reached a lot of fans. and I think he knew that his discography was special. Um, but I'm not sure. Like when he did the verses with Snoop, and yeah, I don't know if you watch verses or you know what is the platform for verses. But it's basically like both
Yeah.
artists pick 20 songs, and you know they put their 20 songs against the next artist of 20 songs. And he explained when he was saying uh, why they picked him for it, and you know it became big like right during the pandemic, so it was kind of a way to give people that were home a show to watch.
Nice.
And it was kind of like live performances. So he he was said at the time when they first brought it to him, he was saying, "Well, you know, I know what my discography is. I know I have something, but I was kind of looking at it like, is this a battle? Because that's where I come from. Is it a battle? If it's a battle, then I'm trying to go in and win. If it's just let's go in and play records and have fun, I guess I can do that." And he was like, "I'm glad I did it, but." You know, that just speaks to again the era he came from, and you know it's competitive.
Yeah, yeah. It's just that idea of well, yeah, I get that. The whole idea of uh, being able to uh, being able to come up with a rhyme just anytime. I mean, dude, I don't. I mean, is that like a trend you think, or is that just if you're good at what you do, you should be able to freestyle anytime, dude? What I would think that would be true no matter what era we're talking about. Am I wrong about that? As to me that it would seem like that should be true anytime.
It just doesn't seem like we're still in that time of everybody can
Wow.
freestyle. Like I said, there used to be a time where you could not go to a radio station and did not have at least like something that you could rap if they threw on a beat. Now that's not what these guys get famous for. It just I don't know. It's a different time, man.
Well, I'm not trying to make this an indictment of why today's sucks in my opinion versus the past. I'm not even suggesting that. It's just different tastes, right? But I don't know, man. Sometimes I feel like the current era doesn't have the teeth that it used to. For good or bad. Maybe that's a good thing that it doesn't. I don't know. Maybe the creativity there is there now more than it was before. Maybe in some regards, theatrically speaking, maybe, I don't know, but I don't know, man. Sometimes it feels like it's missing teeth. It's missing its style. I don't know, dude. Maybe I'm just stuck in the past. Maybe that's what's going on. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there are still guys that you know care about their craft, and there are guys that still you know want to be able to still show up and be able to freestyle at the drop of a dime, or they put a lot into being a producer and an artist. Um, but I just think um, it's easier to get a record deal today than it was before. The
Mm.
internet has made it easier to get recognized and to put your music out there. And because of that, I think the quality of the music has um has dropped. And that's not to say that there isn't great music today. There is. There are a lot of people putting out really good music, but because there's so much of it and because it's so easily accessible, I think the amount of the bad stuff we hear that more than the good stuff.
That's a shame. Yeah, and you're right, and I get that. Now, I guess if you're a musician trying to get a record deal right now, maybe you wouldn't feel that way. But dude, you can have a whole career online. You don't even need. I mean, if you want worldwide exposure, well, God, even then, I say worldwide exposure, man, you can have a whole career on YouTube. If you reach enough people, build enough following, the record label might actually come to you now versus you
Yeah,
know, scratching and clawing to get to them. Man, what a different time we live in. That's crazy.
yeah, exactly. You can make a single and be more known for a single than an album now. That didn't used to be the thing. People used to put a lot into their album because, you know, you had to actually buy the album. Now you can just buy whatever song you want or stream whatever song you want. So people put so much into the single and the rest of the album might not be as good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how things change, man. Again, I sound like the old guy on this podcast, dude. I don't mean to sound like the old guy, but I guess I am. But like, oh, I don't know. I don't know, man. Sometimes we'll do a show and I think about, especially if it's a topic that's come and gone. No disrespect to X here when I say that, but just like the heyday was a different era. Man, it just makes me miss that era, especially if it's something I was really into. A few quick notes here. DMX was actually nominated for 3 Grammys: Best Rap Album for "And Then There Was X," Best Rap Solo Performance for "Party Up," and Best Rap Solo Performance for "Who We Be." He did not win any Grammys, which is ridiculous in my opinion. Again, who's deciding this stuff? I don't know. He did win one American Music Award for favorite rap hip hop artist for the year 2000. And I don't know, that kind of blows my mind. Um, Even MTV Video Music Awards. And listen, I'll preface with no disrespect. I don't really care how anybody takes this. To me, this is a wholly ridiculous set of awards that I don't know who they really matter to. I don't really know, don't really care. But he didn't win any of those. And he was nominated like 6 times, 7 times here. And that's not an indictment on him. It's just I don't know. I don't know. Again, Phil, who decides these things, man? How does he not win best rap album? Especially like we said before, 1980 was red hot. How does he not? I don't know, man. That's crazy to me.
I don't know. The Grammys aren't. They don't have the best history with rap music. I mean, if you're gonna pick any song that should have won a Grammy, and um, to say that it was a crossover record, it was Party Up, and I would think of any of his records, that was the one that was gonna win a Grammy.
All right.
Um, I don't know. It's there are several guys that have never won a Grammy in hip hop. I mean, I think Nas just won his first Grammy this year, which is insane. Um,
Wow.
you've got guys like, I think Jay is one of the most nominated artists in hip hop, and I don't think he's won that many Grammys. I don't. From what I know, he like the year there was one year where he was nominated like 9 times and lost every single category.
God bless. That's crazy.
But yeah, I mean, at one point rappers were boycotting the Grammys because they didn't feel like the Grammys respected them. They didn't present the best rap album even on television. So, I get it. The Grammys just doesn't have a great history with rap music.
I can see that. Yeah, let's see. 2001. Well, okay. So, uh the best 2001 best rap album got the Grammy was Stankonia by Outkast. Okay, now look. I'm an Outkast fan. I can't get too mad at this if I'm being honest with you. I mean, I guess I could, but I really dig Outkast, man. So, uh he had some
Yeah.
competition, right? I'm just saying.
I feel like 98 was the year he should have won Best Rap Album because he
Mm.
had 2 albums that year. How did he not win Best Rap Album for 99 or 90? It should have been 99 because both albums came out in 98. But yeah, Party Up. I'm surprised he lost that one for Best Rap Performance.
Yeah, same here. The 1999 Best Rap Album Grammy Award goes to Eminem for Slim Shady.
Shocker.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe that to this day, Eminem has the most Best Rap albums. I think he has 6. Um, which tells you everything you need to know about the Grammys. I mean, Eminem's amazing. He's gonna go down as one of the best rappers of all time. But to have this white artist be the most winning artist in the category, it says a lot.
I've never cared for him. I gotta be honest with you. I've never bought an album, never got a download. He's not my. I just don't. I don't know, man. Like it's kind of like the Kid Rock thing for me. Never been a real Kid Rock fan. After the ninth song about being from the trailer park, I'm out. Like, dude, freak, I get it. We got it. Your trailer, Jesus. Can we go to the next thing now? So like, I don't know. After a while, I get it. Like, life's hard, and I don't know. I don't know. Again, Phil, personal taste, right? But
Yeah, I can understand not being that into Eminem's music. But in terms of technical ability,
Oh, sure.
he's one of the greatest ever.
Yeah. I can't argue that. I won't argue that because I'll lose. It's yeah, you're 100% right. I have to uh, just like I can say that uh, Kid Rock puts a ton of effort into his lyrics. He does. I don't think they're the best lyrics I've ever heard, but the guy's sold records all over the world. I mean, his stage performance is nothing else. He puts a good band together behind him. He knows what he's doing. He's a competent DJ, right? I mean, yeah, I'll pay respects, but like, no, I'm just it's personally speaking, it's not really my taste. It makes me sad. First of all, it makes me sad that the ex is gone. Um, this is going to kind of sound like a weird thing to say, but I really don't want this guy to be dead, and I don't mean that to be funny. I really don't want this guy to be dead, especially when you messaged me and said, "Hey, he was working on another album." And it floored me because I didn't know. I'm like, "Oh my god, do you mean to sit here and tell me that we could have had the comeback?" Like, not that he went anywhere, but like the comeback DMX album, like for people of this generation to hear, hey, this is how good this can be in this style. And this is one of the masters doing it. Like the guy that was, again, man, at the forefront of his era, at the face of it during those years. Man, that indeed makes me sad, dude, to think about that. We're gonna, and I mean, a posthumous release is great, but he won't be here to enjoy it. Hopefully, it'll win some stuff, and I don't know, man. It makes me sad, Phil. I'm not gonna lie.
It is very sad, especially because we watched how he struggled. He had some financial issues. Of course, like we spoke of earlier, the drugs were a big thing. Like he was really struggling with his addiction for a while. He wasn't looking healthy. Um, and so when he did the verses, he looked lucid, he looked healthy, he looked in good spirits. It
Mm.
was just great to see him. It was great to see him in such, good health and good spirits, man. And I thought that it was only up from here. So when I heard the album was coming, I was like, okay, maybe he's ready to come back and put out music, and he's going to be visible again. He's only 50 years old. That's not that old.
No.
And watch him do Drink Champs and say how he was happy to be back with Def Jam because Def Jam was his home. He had his most success at Def Jam, and he was sitting there, and at one point he brought his kids out, and this was after he had already passed. It was just really sad to watch, man. He's you know to say that he has all these kids, that's a lot of kids to have, but his kids meant a lot to him. His family meant a lot to him, and just to know he's not here for them anymore, it's sad.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's got an enemy somewhere. I again, I don't seek out negative press, man. I just don't. It's not my thing. I don't go googling people that hate certain people, but I don't know that I've seen anybody, unless I'm missing it, who's dissing him, who's speaking ill of him. If they're out there, I'm not hearing them, and I choose not to hear them. Maybe that's what's going on, but it seems like people have very positive things to say about this guy. It's not the least of which is his family, which makes total sense. Um, it's my kid had messaged me that day, and it was like after school, or I was coming home from work or something, and he goes, DMX died. And I was like, yeah, no, I heard. And so we talked about it a little bit, and he's like, he goes, what was it? And I said, it was drugs. So evidently he been addicted to cocaine since age 14, I think is what it is, off and on, and dealing with it his whole life and struggling. And the guy was in jail for the guy was in jail 30 times. I mean, he had demons, kids, a lot of demons. Again, we've never claimed he was a saint. This show's just meant to celebrate his career and what he meant to us personally and to a lot of other people out there, and probably will for years to come. But uh, my kid's questioning me like, what did basically, what did you do this for? And I had to remind him as gently as I could that we lost my sister a year ago this past December. To drugs, which is, I don't think I've said it out loud yet because it's hard to talk about. But, you know, people make bad choices, man. And it's uh, once your brain is wired or rewired to think that you have to have this, when in reality you don't. But, dude, when your brain, and it's proven fact, man, your neural pathways are rewired to the point where you feel like you will die without it. You have to have it. And it's like,
Yeah.
dude, you can't undo that in a day or two. That takes, putting you in a room, locking the door, taking away any dangerous objects, and you just have to deal with it. And it's, dude, if you can't get yourself to that point, and I don't want to speak for X, I don't know what the situation was. It's not the same. My sisters, two totally different walks of life, two totally different people, backgrounds, whatever. I get it. But man, if he couldn't bring himself to, I don't know, to overpower that, to overcome it, I mean, dude, this is not easy for anybody to be able to do, man.
Yeah, and from what I understand of his story, he got addicted to crack, and I think it was he he ended up smoking a joint or something, and it was laced with crack, and that's how he got addicted to it. So it wasn't even his choice. And this was just one of those things where my dad has told me several times, I'm not a drug user. I try to stay away from any kind of drugs. I know marijuana is a thing now, it's legal in some states, but one of the things that I've understood in my dad and I've talked about because it used to be a street thing. And on if you are a drug if you're in drugs and you're selling drugs, the whole point is to get other people addicted so that you continue to have customers. Um,
Mm,
if you if now right now you can get weed anywhere. You can go get weed at, all of these like dispensaries and all these places. You can even go to gas stations sometimes and they have like the weed there. If anybody can sell it, that means that the sellers out here that are just selling it illegally, they are trying to figure out a way to get more customers to come directly to them.
mm,
And that speaks to this what happened to X in the 90s. Somebody, laced his blunt with crack, and that's how he got addicted. And this is a 13, 14-year-old kid. I mean, to see that he's been struggling with this, like I said, he passed away when he's 50. He's been struggling with this for over 30 years. It's tragic when you think about it that way, that he had no control of that situation. He didn't have the choice.
yeah.
And that's why I don't like when some people are like, well, man, he must have just been really hung up. Like, this was something he really, really struggled with for a long time. And it's just sad to see him go out that way. I think it was an overdose, and he had a heart attack. But it's just really sad that he just could not overcome this.
Again, two different things I'm getting ready to talk about here, but like, cocaine has always felt to me like excruciatingly slow suicide. Like, because chances are, unless you just do a whole plate full of it, it's not going to kill you the first time. I don't think. I guess anything's possible, but to me, it's like suicide. Like, you do it the one time, it's over. You're not going to come back from it. So like, you do cocaine one time and you get a taste of it, and it hits your brain, dude. I guess. And I've never tried drugs in my life. I've never tried any alcohol of any kind. I've never had anything in my system. And now, me being older in my life, I can't see starting now because I'm just thinking, why would I start now? Like, my dad was killed by a drunk driver when I was 4.5, and it was sort of a promise to him that I wouldn't, you know, like he wasn't exactly around to hear me make this promise, right? But it just, I don't know, it felt like it would be disrespecting his memory if I'd ever done anything. And to this day, I just don't have a desire to. I kind of need my pain, and sometimes I don't want it, but I kind of need it. And the idea of covering it up or running from it, I'm not suggesting X was running from anything, but some people do use a crutch or use a vice to feel better, and I get that. I don't condone it, but I get it. I understand. But I don't know, man. For me, I just feel like, let me deal with whatever's in front of me today, and I'll try to get through it. And if it's still there in the morning, well, at least I'll get a night's sleep and come back and deal with it again tomorrow. I just can't. I don't know, man. It feels like if I cover something up with something else, it's the problem's still going to be there tomorrow. I didn't address it. I didn't face it. I didn't deal with it. And now now it's worse because I'm either hungover or I'm now I need another fix. And I don't know, dude. But there again, man, I wasn't tricked into it, so that's easy for me to sit here and say. Um, I honestly didn't know because you hear things like about like this, and you just assume that guys just start doing it because they're partying or whatever. I had no idea that he didn't know he was taking it. That's crazy.
Yeah, and from what I understand about crack, and I've had friends that did it. I've had family members that did it. It is just a completely different beast because it's so addictive,
Mm.
and yeah, it's sad, man. It's really really sad that that's how this guy that brought so much joy to the world and brought so many different things and inspired so many people. That's how his life ended, and that doesn't take any value away from his life. That doesn't mean that this was a meaningless end to his life. But just to know that he was doing better and he was in and out of rehab and he's ready to keep working, and this was it at 50. It's like it's sad, man. Because again, 50 is not old, man. It's not
No,
an old age at all.
no. I keep saying that. No, it's not. Everybody shut up. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's a shame, man. I didn't mean this to turn into an after school special here, kids, but I just, stuff like this makes you think. And I don't know, man. For me personally, it's just this idea of entertainers that I kind of, I mean, I didn't grow up with DMX, but, he was around and he was, man, they become part of the soundtrack of your life, either visually or, audio wise, or maybe both sometimes. And like, um, when those guys pass, it's like, God, it just reminds you of your own mortality, I guess. And maybe that's where I'm coming down from on this. It's just, God, it's just sad. And I don't want him back for my sake. I'd like to have him back because I don't want him to be gone. Yeah, the idea of, man, imagine him and Jay Z, getting on stage together somewhere and just sort of smiling and killing it on a track, man, that'd be fun. Uh,
Yeah, and I think it's part of his music as well that he had so many songs that talked about his struggles, like Slipping,
mm,
and you wanted him to get a happy ending. You wanted him to have a long life and do more. Um, and I mean, especially getting to see him on Versus, it was such a good experience to see him out and about again. It was like, man, I'm ready for this pandemic to be over, and maybe he can tour again, and he could be out and be in front of crowds again. And we just didn't get it. Especially with him making a new album, I think the opportunity for him to tour and it just, yeah, it shouldn't have happened that way. It feels like.
yeah, I've been watching Cradle of the Grave the whole time we've been doing this episode, and man, just young, vibrant, full of energy, full of promise. And luckily for him, he got to the promise was fulfilled, and he got to realize his potential. And you know, it sucks that he didn't come away from any of this with some serious awards because um, I don't know, man. I guess at the end of the day, do you think that he got the acclaim he deserves? Is he going to get it now? Do you think he got it when he was still here? I mean, overall, do you think that he gets the credit he deserves? Honestly.
I think that he does. I think that he's beloved by about people all around the world. And I mean, we're way out of the point in the '80s, early '90s, where rap was just a thing here in America. It's one of the biggest global imports at this point, and I think X was one of those guys that helped to make it uh, uh, a global phenomenon.
Yeah, and honestly, man, I think he was the right mix of macho, but in intensity. But he's got heart. He's got religion. He can be soft when he needs to, but he can be hardcore when he needs to. And I mean, I guess what I'm saying is he's human, and he's not. God, dude, stereotype might be the wrong word. He's not fitting the right mold. He's not fitting a mold. He's just himself, which I know it's a weird comparison to mention John Lennon again, but God, it just John Lennon, one of his quotes was, "We were a working class band that stayed working class." no matter how much money we got, we were still the same guys at the end of the day. And I mean, to me, that's DMX. Like, if you could see the guy before he got famous versus after he got famous, I would dare say it's probably the same guy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you consider, like I said, you think of this guy, um, standing with like two big pit bulls or something with like a military jacket on, and then you look at that in comparison to him, like in this circle dancing with people at a wedding,
Yes.
having a good time. It's like that is just a perfect, encapsulation of how complex he was.
Yeah, for sure. I've got a bunch of stuff to go Google now on YouTube, or I'll look up on YouTube, especially the rap with the dog, man. I got to go check that out. Um, yeah, again, kids, it's, one of those shows we could have done anytime. Um, I'll be honest and say he wasn't on my radar, but there again, if had the album dropped and he would still be here, we more than likely would have done one because I would have been looking forward to it for sure. Hard to sum up a guy's life, and I don't want you to do that, but for you personally, give me your last word on DMX.
I mean, I feel like he's one of those guys that transcended his genre. I feel like he's a pop culture icon.
Hmm.
And I feel like, no matter what his ups and downs in life were, I feel like he left a mark on the world.
Yeah, I agree with that. He was unapologetically who he was. He didn't run from uh, the issue of color. He didn't run from any of that stuff. He took it on head on. Um, he was mainstream, but not to the point of betraying who he was. I mean, the guy's nickname was Darkman X. I mean, that's that again, this guy embraces who he is. He's not. He may have been mainstream, but he never sold out. Which I think there's a big difference between the two. And we don't need to throw shade at anybody, but we've seen plenty of artists over the years who maybe we could say have sold out, maybe, and they have their own reasons for doing that and go with God, I guess. But DMX stayed true to who he is. I think that's important to note. And the fact that, some white guy in North Carolina could appreciate what he brought to the game, in my opinion, speaks volumes about who he was as an artist, that he had that effect, that he could touch people thousands of miles away. And I'm sure there's people in other countries as we record this who were touched by some of the stuff that he said and the way he lived his life and the fact that he wasn't perfect and he dealt with his demons. And that's, we should all be so brave as to confront our stuff head on and try not to run from it, try to deal with it as we can. But it's a sad ending. But we have his legacy, and I think that's important. We'll always have his music to enjoy, and the idea of what if will always be there with us, as it is with a lot of artists who pass before their time. But at the end of the day, all you can do is appreciate what they brought and try to pass it on to the next generation, which I'm sure guys our age and older will probably be doing for a long time to come. And that is DMX. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.